talking to Paul, in the last 8 years, they've spent over £1 million just on this section alone. So at the start of any factory tour, I think it's important we go right back to the beginning. So as you can see, we're in material storage. They have their saw in here to cut it off, but one thing you'll notice is every piece of material is labelled and marked, and that is for ISO 9001, where they need traceability on everything. So material comes in, it's all checked, sawn off, that's where your job begins. So from there, we're now going to move on to inspection. But before we get to inspection, I'd just like to point out some of the material they're doing here is, this is Inconel, which is, as I've said, it's awful to machine. Now these guys make it look easy, and on this star behind them, one of their little worries was that the star might not cope with such hard and exotic materials, but they've been completely blown away. That star will do anything they put through it. Now, this is now their inspection. Now, Kadel do a lot of work for F1. So with F1, everything is toleranced to a micron. Now, in here, they've spent quite a lot of money investing in here. They've got all bits. Now, the machine at the end, if Chris would like to pan back to it, that's quite a clever CMM, because it does have a probe on like a normal CMM, but it also has a glass bottom, so they can actually scan and make sure every single dimension is right. Now, from inspection, we're going to move on to their CNC turning section. Now, talking to Paul, in the last 8 years, they've spent over £1 million just on this section alone. So they have 2 DMG Morris dual spindle machines, both fed by Hydrofeed. Now these came as a package complete. Now on this machine, they use this one for bar work. We can't show you exactly what they're making, I'm afraid, because of NDAs, but you can see that they've got some really incredible equipment. Now this is actually the very first star they bought, and they went for the slightly bigger machine on thoughts that they can do the littler stuff, but they can also do the bigger diameter stuff on here as well. Now, I've got some of these to show you in a minute, which we can actually talk about, but this DMG Mori is quite a machine. Fed again by a Hydrofeed bar feeder, and this is where they do all their chuck work, so op 1 across to op 2, but they've upgraded the turret in here, so they've got 20 tool turret with driven tooling. So on this machine, they can do 90% of the parts that need to. Now, we're actually going to move on to this is their latest purchase, but before we get to there, this is some of the parts we're actually allowed to show. Now, this is one of the reasons they have the bigger star for the bigger diameter, but what I really like is these. Now, I'll try and get this explanation right, so bear with me. When you come up to a crossing, on the floor you'll feel that the pavement is sometimes, it has this sort of shape on it. Well, that is for blind people, so they know when to stop walking. But some places, posh hotels, don't like that. So these are actually, I'm going to pop a few out. So these are actually machined with different heads on for different places, because people like posh and they like things to look different. And these are made out of stainless, Inconel. There's a brass one which looks unreal, and these are all done on the star. Now, this is their latest investment, and with this one they actually got the B-axis, and they also got the high pressure coolant with this machine. And after getting the high pressure coolant, they realised we need that on the rest of them. So they got it on the other machine, and then this is the first machine they bought. They actually had it retrofitted onto this machine because they realized just how valuable it was. Now, this is the turning section. Now I'm going to move on to the CNC milling section, which might surprise a few people, this section. Chris is going to pan, so you can't see this because we're going to finish here. But they have all Bridgeport machines. And this is because they bought their first Bridgeport machine, and Paul, who is MD, actually started off on the machines. So he was the guy running the first Bridgeport. He liked it that much, he bought more of them. There's nothing more to say. So these are actually doing, we can show you these parts. They're doing parts for railway industry on every one of these machines down here. And I don't know if he knows, but we're going to jump on someone in a minute. So I'm coming to see you, I'm afraid. So on this machine behind us, what are you making and what industry is it for?
Making fixing plates for train industry.
So every machine on here is making something for the train industry. They've got the 3-jaw chucks on the mounting plates ready to be added. But I'm going to point Chris in the right direction here, but between the actual machines, they've got sanding belts and chamfer tools, so that if they can't get up to and they can't get the chamfers in on the holes, or there's a bit of deburring to do, they've got it all here. As you can see, more Bridgeport's machines. And something I think I need to make a bit clear is, you can see that it's quite skeleton staff. Now, they've got a few guys on holiday, one guy's ill, and they've actually got a semi-retired guy, which must be nice, which works 2 days a week, who would normally be in this area here. So they've actually gone on the route with the bar feeders and the star machines to be able to run production. That first section we were in on the turning section, 5 machines is run by one guy. So up this end of the building, they've got all their fixtures for everything they've done. They keep every fixture. So if a lot of their jobs are repeated monthly, yearly, so they've got everything ready to go. We now come to their finishing area. So after it's been inspected, sometimes even before it's been inspected between operations, they can bring it up here, they can file it, they can chamfer it, they can do what needs to be done to make a part look nice before a customer gets it. Now, we're going to walk past their biggest machine now. This is a 2-meter bed machine. Now, I'm afraid we can't go in there because there's NDAs on the parts in there. But something I've never actually seen before is, if Chris looks this way, this is a 5-axis Bridgeport. Now, I've never actually seen a 5-axis Bridgeport. Didn't even know they did them, so I'm learning something here today. And they use this machine for everything, but mostly they do slightly larger parts, which they can then hit each side on. So they're not trying to turn it over in vices, and then you've got bends. So they utilize this machine for some longer parts. This is one of their newer, if I'm right. But something I haven't mentioned, and I think he's coming back now, is 90% of the machines in here have got micro-lock systems on. Now, I'm just going to quickly, what do you think to the micro-lock system, and does it help you on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, they take a while to set up sometimes because they're very versatile, but for components we use where you can only grip on a small amount, they're absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Thank you. So there you go. So micro-lock systems on 90% of their machines, and as you've just heard, they're such a versatile little clamp, little vice, depends what you want to call it, then it can be used for everything, and everything these guys do, they're holding on 1 mil, 2 mil, so they've not really got much. Now, we come to the last place on our tour, and this is their assembly area. So they don't just make one-off parts, they make assemblies. So this is where things will come after being machined. Not allowed to degrease anything else but F1 parts in here. I'm hoping he's not stole that off his wife, otherwise she might be a bit cross. But this is where everything will be put together. You can see it's all really nice and clean. They have their ultrasonic cleaner just to make sure everything is absolutely spot on. So, and that's it. As you can see, we've got pot outs on here, which we can't show for NDA reasons. Chris might have to not scan through. Now, you've seen this entire shop, which I think is such an impressive place, with how much machinery they've got for such a short amount of staff. So now, we've been around the place, I'm finished, so it's time I'm loaded. So I'm afraid I'm out of here. Hope to see you next week on next week's Swarf and Chips.